Bill Connelly of ESPN has put out an article about the best to worst hires in college football. And boy, are there some hot takes in here that I think we need to address. Now, to be clear, I am not going to come at Bill Connelly personally for any of this stuff. I do think that Bill Connelly is somebody that looks at the numbers far more than anything else. And I do think that gets him in trouble a lot of the times, as I do think there are things outside of the numbers context that you need to understand. And I think that we see evidence of that in this situation here with this ESPN article where he ranks all of these things. I've been on record saying that Matt Campbell is the best hire of the offseason for anybody in all of college football. I stand by that. I still think that that is true. But as we're going to see, Bill Connelly does not agree with that, hardly at all. And he has some different things here. There is I wouldn't say it's all SEC pro kind of stuff. And I don't think Bill Connelly's being, SEC bias here on purpose, but I definitely think that there is some SEC bias in his brain here with some of the stuff that's going on and some anti Big Ten bias as well. Not saying that he is doing it on purpose. I think that's one of the main things that people need to realize about SEC bias and things like that is I don't think a lot of people do it on purpose. I think that the media has just kind of brainwashed some of these people into thinking this. So we're going to get into the article. Before we do that, though, please do like, subscribe. If you are somebody that you, like me, think that Matt Campbell, one of the best, if not the best hires of the offseason in college football, like the video. If you do not think that, please do comment and let me know why you do or do not think that that is true. Now, let's get into the article. So, Bill Connelly, he kind of references some stuff, Tom Osborne, Bill Welsh, Bill Belichick, all these things beforehand. Let's go ahead and get into the meat. LSU gets an A plus, probably the best job available, filled by the best available coach. Okay. I don't agree that Lane Kiffin was the best available coach. I think that Lane Kiffin has, shown that he's still very immature, and he's shown at multiple different stops that he cannot win up to the expectations that people have for him. Now, at Ole Miss, did he win over the expectations because it's Ole Miss? Yes. Did he still, do what he was supposed to do? No, because Bill Connelly himself had Ole Miss rated as the second best team in college football last year with SP Plus. Now, he'll say that he doesn't actually think that. That's just SP Plus's model and everything, and that's fine. I get that. It's not his actual opinion. Again, I'm not coming at Bill Connelly personally here, but I do think when you look at something like SP Plus, if somebody is ranked the second best team in the nation, they should at least make a 12-team playoff, correct? Like that is what you should at least do. And then on top of that, we saw the way he absolutely burned Ole Miss, going away from them and just completely disregarded any type of goodwill that he built up there. Ask Ole Miss fans how they feel about Lane Kiffin. I think you will get a resounding no, he is not an A plus hire. By the numbers, yes, Lane Kiffin wins a lot of football games. Behind the scenes and some of that stuff, some of the I don't even get into that, but some of the stuff that he talks that he does and off the field and things like that, I think that he's shown he is not the leader of men that other guys are. And I think in coaching, even if you are a great offensive mind, you still have to be a fantastic leader of men. I don't think this is the hire many people think it is, that LSU is going to go win a national championship anytime soon. Maybe they do. Maybe they just have the superior talent and make it happen. But I think there's a whole lot more parity in college football now, and you can't just rely on bringing in a really good offensive mind and acquiring all the talent and winning in college football. Just don't think it's the case. Next one, number 2. Holy cow, what a terrible. Not going to comment Bill Connelly personally, but James Franklin at number 2 for Virginia Tech. I have talked time and time again about how terrible James Franklin was for Penn State. If you just look at the record and you look at the wins and everything else, you say, well, James Franklin was a good coach at Penn State. But there were reasons why James Franklin did not win those big games. One of the reasons why he did not win those big games is because he did not play players based on their performance on the field. Look at Penn State this season with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. Just he was refusing to play Katron Allen the amount, and this is just one example. There's far more examples of this, but he was refusing to play Katron Allen because Nicholas Singleton he was making more money. He was the guy that was destined to be the one to be the better player, the more explosive kind of guy. He would never pivot and make that happen. And on top of that, James Franklin ran his program to where he knew how much every single player was making in NIL and ran his program that way. He would also not pay freshmen the amount that they would, more than other players on their current roster. James Franklin does not know how to run a championship style program. Is he going to be very good at Virginia Tech? Probably, but I do think eventually he's going to plateau there, just like he plateaued at Penn State, because he does not get by these things. A lot is made about Dabo Swinney and and his limitations because of his beliefs with NIL and stuff like that. I do think that whole thing needs to be kind of talked about in the same vein with James Franklin a little bit, with how he handles NIL and other stuff, with not being willing for other players on the recruits to make more than players on the roster, playing the player that is making more money just because they're making more money, not necessarily because somebody's a better player, but because they make more money. James Franklin, not a great hire in my opinion, and to be number 2 on this list, I just can't agree with it. Eric Morris, he is not nearly proven enough. He had a very good offense there at North Texas, and but lost to John Summerall at Tulane. To say that he is a better hire than John Summerall is absolutely asinine to me. I have no idea how you can make the case for that. Jim Mora, Mark Carney, Matt Campbell. Apparently, Kent State and Colorado State both made better hires than Penn State and Matt Campbell. Now, if you want to talk about the process in which it happened, right? Over 50-day coaching search and go through all that. Yes, I can get on board with you that was not a very good situation and that Pat Kraft failed in that way. I got you. But at the end of the day, you look at who was the hire, right? Are we looking at how was the hire made and they lost a recruiting class and stuff like that? Sure. Penn State's probably at the bottom if we're talking about that because they lost an entire recruiting class based on some of the stuff. But just the actual hire, Matt Campbell fits Penn State so well, and Matt Campbell is the type of head coach that can win a national championship at some point. Is that a guarantee that he will? No, it's not a guarantee, but you can't say that Lane Kiffin can win a national championship, but Matt Campbell cannot, right? Matt Campbell has brought Iowa State to the heights of where Lane Kiffin has in his time there at Ole Miss. Maybe not to the same, level of prestige. People talking about Ole Miss could, win a national championship and stuff like that. But I would argue that Lane Kiffin has had more talent and done less with it than Matt Campbell has. Matt Campbell has had less talent and done more with it. And in my opinion, that makes a better head coach. I love Matt Campbell. I think Matt Campbell is a fantastic hire for Penn State. Is it going to work out? I have no idea because we never know. But if you're just looking at the head coach, what they've done, where they've been, how they were able to overachieve with less talent, and we can talk about that, how they didn't have as much talent. But in today's day and age with college football, resources are the name of the game. And if you're going to tell me that Iowa State was on the same par of resources as Ole Miss, then I have oceanfront property to sell you in Kansas. It's just not. It's just not the same. So Matt Campbell should be much higher on this list. A- to B+. Now, I don't agree with the spots, but I do think that an A- or an A type of grade is perfectly acceptable for Bob Chesney. I think Bob Chesney, top 10 hire. I'd say probably a top 5 fringe top 5 higher in in all of college football there with Bob Chesney. I do have some concerns with him not being from California and some of that stuff and everything. I think a lot of people are comparing him to Kirk Cinetti. Kirk Cinetti did have ties up there in the Midwest and stuff that helped him out, but overall I think that this entire situation with Bob Chesney does deserve a lot of credit and is a good hire for them. He just brought back Nico Iamaleava. Going to make a separate video about that if you want to go check that out. But overall, good stuff here from Bob Chesney. Really like that he is the hire there, and I think that Bill Connelly gives him an appropriate grade here. I would probably just put Bob Chesney higher personally. Will Stein, similar thing, continue to go down. Colin Klein, I don't think that was as good of a hire, especially what you saw in that bowl in the playoff game there. I understand Marcel Reed, windy, stuff like that, but anyway, we'll continue to move on. Alex Golish, I think that's actually one of the better hires in the offseason. You get down Jimmy Rogers, Iowa State. I do not think Alex Golish and Jimmy Rogers are on the same grade level. That's just me personally. Continue to go down. Taj Lapoi there at California. To pull an Oregon defensive coordinator to Cal, I think that deserves a little bit more credit there. I agree with Utah kind of in the middle there. This is what they expected. This is what they had. So I don't think I can give it like an A+ or anything like that, but it's a fine hire. Billy Napier. To say that Billy Napier is a better to say that Billy Napier, absolute failure at Florida. Billy Napier is a better hire at James Madison than Brian Hartline is at USF is completely asinine. It makes Zero logistical sense. It makes zero. There is zero evidence of that uh, being right. I cannot believe that you would rate Billy Napier a complete failure at Florida. Took way too much time there. He ran the program into the ground. To say that he is a better hire at James Madison than Florida, than the South Florida, where Brian Hartline has done tons of his recruiting down there at South Florida. He went and played for the Miami Dolphins. He knows that area very well. To say that Brian Hartline to South Florida, sure, you can say Brian Hartline wasn't a head coach or anything like that. Sure, I guess you talk about that, but the fit at South Florida, Alex Golish, Mike Tressel, a Jim Tressel guy replacing Alex Golish with another Jim Tressel guy going in. These are the types of things that you have to be aware of when you're talking about these head coaches. It's one of the reasons why I don't go through and rank every single one, because I don't know all this stuff about every single hire. But what I do know is a lot of these Big Ten guys, and to say that a guy like Billy Napier is a better hire than Brian Hartline is just completely, not knowing what you're talking about, not understanding what the hire of Brian Hartline to USF is, what it means for the program, where USF is as a program right now, and how much excitement that's going to bring to them. Brian Hartline has shown that he is the best position coach in all of college football by far, recruiting, development, and then in year one as offensive coordinator for Ohio State, he goes undefeated until the Big Ten championship game, finishes second place in the Big Ten. Very first year as offensive coordinator, calling plays. Wasn't just that he was, Ryan Day's lackey or anything like that. Calling plays, being given the offense to develop and work through that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, Bill. I'm not coming at you personally. I just think you have no idea what you're talking about when you're talking about Billy Napier and Brian Hartline. Again, not coming at you personally, but it is what it is. And then finally, the last one, Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State. Again, the complete lack of understanding for Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State, and even understanding what's going on at Michigan State right now. All right, I understand people are apprehensive about the Nick Sheridan hire as the offensive coordinator, but you know what he's doing is he is bringing in actual names to Michigan State. He's not bringing in guys that were kind of names in the Big Ten. Joe Rossi and guys. I mean, he does have Joe Rossi on his staff there, but that's not like his A+ hire. That was like Jonathan Smith's A+ hire was Joe Rossi. His A+ hire is LeVar Woods as a special teams coordinator and as his assistant head coach. His second best hire is Max Bulla, the former Mark D'Antonio linebacker that was historic there at Michigan State. To bring in Minnesota's former defensive line coach 2 years ago that did fantastic there, went to the NFL to Arizona to be the defensive line coach there, comes back to Michigan State. For Pat Fitzgerald to win as much as he did at Northwestern, talk about do more with less. Yes, he had a few bad seasons. I think he had a 3-win season there at the end, but you're also talking about a Northwestern team that had hardly any NIL resources, that still had an academic restriction on the type of players that they could bring into there. Pat Fitzgerald was falling behind, not because he wasn't a good coach, but because of the levels of restrictions he had on him at Northwestern. For him to get this job at Michigan State, for them to let go of Jonathan Smith and seamlessly bring in, the bad snap, to seamlessly bring in Pat Fitzgerald like that, it's a fantastic hire. Is it one of the top 5 hires? No, there's definitely some risk you have here. I'm not trying to say this is one of the best hires in all of college football, but this is definitely better than some. This is by far a better hire than Billy Napier to James Madison. James Madison has consistently gone out and found up-and-coming head coaches, Kirk Cignetti, Bob Chesney, that have won and coming in there. I firmly believe that when you bring in a head coach, you need to bring in a winner, right? Is Pat Fitzgerald a winner? Not the past few seasons at Northwestern, so that doesn't make him a top 5 head coach. Doesn't make him top 10 head coach hire. Probably fringe top 10, I would say. But to see that and to see what he's doing now with his staff, assembling that together, bringing back guys like Courtney Hawkins there to be his wide receiver coach, guys that were doing a fantastic job. He is making the right decisions on guys to bring back and guys to take. And this isn't an article from days ago. This is an article from 7:30 in the morning on December 22nd. I am shocked by some of these rankings. They should not be getting me as upset as I am, quite frankly, but they are. And I would love to know your thoughts in the comments section. Do you think that Pat Fitzgerald is the worst head coach hire in this coaching carousel? Do you think that Billy Napier is a better head coach hire than Brian Hartline? Do you think that James Franklin is a better head coach hire than Matt Campbell? James Franklin consistently underperformed at Penn State, not just on the field, but in recruiting. He had more NIL than he ever wanted to deal with. He never, again, I went through all that. What are your thoughts on Bill Connelly's rankings here? Let me know below. Do you think I'm asinine? Do you think I have no idea what I'm talking about? Would love to hear what you guys think. Please do like, subscribe, with all that good stuff. We appreciate it. Have a good one.